Good morning, students. Today we will discuss chapter 4 of economics, grade 10th, globalization and the Indian economy. So let's start the chapter. So the page is now 55 of your NCRT book. So students, as consumer in today's world, some of us have a wide choice of goods and services before us. So if we see today's world, we have a wide choice. We have a variety of goods and services before us. We have latest models of digital camera, mobile phones, televisions, cars, so many things we have, which is manufactured by the leading manufacturers of the world within our reach. So we have a variety of products within our reach. Every season, if you see new models of phones, cars, can be seen in the Indian market. And gone are the days when ambassadors and Fiats were only cars on the Indian road. So gone those days when only two brands, Ambassador and Fiats, were visible on the Indian roads. Today, Indians are buying cars produced by nearly all the top countries, whether it is Phantom, Bentley, Porsche, BMW, Audi, Jaguar. So all these brands you can see, all these top companies you can see in India. And the similar explosion on the large scale of brands you have seen for shirts, for TVs, for eatables, for fruit juices, and such wide-ranging choice of goods in our market is relatively recent phenomena. So this variety of goods which is available in our market is a recent phenomena. It is after 1991 when we opened our economies. So you wouldn't have found such variety in Indian markets even 2 decades back. So before 1991, this choice was not available to the consumer. So in a matter of years, our markets have been changed, transformed a lot. So how do we understand these rapid transformations? What happened? What kind of government policies were introduced that this transformation happened? What factors contribute towards this transformation? So what are the factors that are bringing about these changes and how these changes are affecting the lives of the people? So we will see in this chapter. So globalization and the Indian economy, we will talk. Globalization means the free interaction of the economy with the economies of the rest of the world. So globalization is the process by which business or other organization they develop the international influence or they start operating on an international scale. So this is globalization. So now the page 56 of your book, students, the topic which we have to discuss here is production across countries. Now we have to see how the production is being carried out by MNCs. So until the middle of the 20th century, students, production was largely organized within the country only. So within the boundaries of the country only, the production was carried out. And what used to cross the boundaries of the country is either raw material or the food or the finished product. So these things we used to send outside the country, either the raw material and either the finished product or the food. So you have seen when India was the colony of the Britain at that time, we were sending raw material to the Britain, the cotton, raw cotton, and then the Britain they used to send the mill made cloth to our country. So only the raw material, food or the finished products, they cross the boundaries of the country. And trade was the main channel connecting the faraway countries. And this was before when the large companies called MNCs, multinational companies, they emerged on the scene. So what is MNC, student? MNC is a company that owns or control production in more than one nation. So it is a company that owns and controls production in more than one nation. They set up their offices and factories for production in regions where there is a cheap labor and where there is a availability of cheap resources. So they want cheap labor to be available, cheap and skilled labor should be available, then only MNCs will come and invest in those countries. So this is done why they want cheap labor, because it will keep their cost of production low. They have to give less wages. If they set up the units in their country only, there to they have to pay a lot of wages, so it will increase their cost of production. But if they go for the countries where there is abundant labor, cheap labor is available there, they can decrease their cost of production and it will fetch them more profits. So now let's see the example which is given, spreading of production by an MNC, how a production is being carried out by MNC. So large MNC producing industrial equipments design its products in the research center in United States. So designing they do sitting in the research centers in the United States. Then they have to go for the component manufacturing in China. So why China? Because surplus labor is available in China, that too at the cheap rates. Then these components are then shipped to Mexico and Eastern Europe, where the product will be assembled. Why these countries, Mexico and Eastern Europe? Why these part of the world? Because there the market is nearby. So assembling will be done where the market is nearby, and then the finished product will be sold all over the world. So companies customer care, it will be handled by India, and call centers which will be located in India. So this is how you can see how the MNCs they spread their production, how the production process, which is very complex, it is spread out. So designing somewhere else in USA, component manufacturing in China, assembling in Mexico and Eastern Europe, and then the finished products sold throughout the world, and customer care, the after sales services provided by India in the call centers. So now page 57, students. So we have seen in the earlier example that how MNCs carry out their production process. So the MNC not only sell its finished products globally, but the goods and services are also produced globally. So you have seen that designing is somewhere else, then manufacturing is somewhere else, assembling is somewhere else. So it is a global production process which is being carried out, and production is organized in a very complex way. Also the production process is divided also into the small parts, and it is spread throughout the globe. If you see, China provides the advantage of being the cheap manufacturing location. Then Mexico and Eastern Europe are useful because they are close to the markets in USA and Europe, and India has highly skilled engineers who can understand the technical aspects of the production. It also has educated English speaking youth who can provide customer care services. So by spreading the production process like this, the MNCs they can do the cost saving for 50 to 60%. So this much is the cost saving of this kind of production process. So the advantage of spreading out the production process is truly immense for this MNCs. So you can see that 50 to 60% of cost has been reduced, has been saved by the MNCs. Now next is interlinking production process across country. Interlinking production across country means how MNCs enter into our country. What are the ways through which MNCs set up their production in our countries? So in general, student, MNCs set up the production where it is close to the market. So they will set up their production units there only which is close to the market, where there is a skilled and unskilled labor available at the low cost, so cheap labor availability. Then the availability of other factors they have also to see, like now they have to see other things also, like the government policies. It should be favorable for the MNCs. Okay, so these are some of the factors. If these are fulfilled, only then MNCs will come and set up the units. Now, having assured everything, all these conditions have been fulfilled, now MNCs set up the factories and offices for the production. So everything is now satisfied. There is abundance of cheap and skilled labor in your country. Government policies are favorable. Stability is there. Law and order conditions are very good in your country. So now investment will come now. So MNCs set up the factories, offices for production. The money that is spent to buy assets such as land, buildings, machines, other equipment is called investment. Now MNCs will come. They will make the investment, and investment made by MNC is called foreign investment. So if above conditions which we have stated those are fulfilled, then foreign investment will flow into the country, and any investment is made with the hope that these assets will earn profit. So they are here for business, they are here for profit making, so they will make the investment keeping in mind that this will fetch them huge profits. So now the question arises, how MNCs they have come now, how they set up their through which ways MNCs set up their production. So let's see. First, they can do partnerships. So MNCs set up production jointly with some of the local companies of these countries. So they can come, they can merge, they can have partnership with any of the companies. The benefits to the local company of such joint production is twofold. Now MNC will come and they will join their hands with the local company. So local company will get benefit. What kind of benefit? First, MNC can provide money for additional investment. So they have lot of money, they will bring additional money for the additional investment, like buying for new machines for faster production. Second, So MNCs might bring with them latest technology for the production. So they have sophisticated technology. So it will be also be advantages to the local company that MNC is coming and they are tying with them. So they will have now also the sophisticated machinery. So now page 58 students here. So we were discussing that interlinking production across country, how MNCs enter into our country. So first we have discussed partnership, that the MNCs they can come and they can join they can join their hands, or they can merge with any of the local company. Second is they can purchase any local company. But the most common rule for MNC investment is to buy up the local companies and then to expand their production. So MNCs with huge wealth, with huge money, they can easily, quite easily, they can do so. Like the example is of the Cargill Foods. American MNC, they have bought smaller Indian company like Parekh Foods. So Parekh Foods has built a large marketing network in various parts of India where its brand was well reputed. And also the Parekh Foods had 4 oil refineries whose control is now shifted to the Cargill. And Cargill is now the largest producer of the edible oil in India with the capacity to make 5 million pouches daily. So Cargill has these brands like Nature Fresh, Gemini, Svikar, Rath. So all these edible oil brands are now under Cargill. So this was the another way. So in fact many of the top MNCs they have wealth exceeding the entire budget of the developing country. This much wealth they have, and with such enormous wealth you can imagine that how much powerful these MNCs are and how much easily they can influence the government of the developing country. Now the third way through which MNCs control production is large MNCs in developed country, they place orders for production with the small producers. So placing of orders with the small producers of garments, footwear, sports item. So these are the example of the industry where production is carried out by large number of small producers around the world. So the MNCs, they are supplied to the products are supplied to the MNCs, which then sell under their own brand names to the customer. So the small producers will supply them the products, and then the MNCs they will just put their logo, their brand name, and they will sell to the customer. Now these large MNCs they have tremendous power. Now all the power is in the hands of the MNCs, and you know what the small producers can do, they can't stand anywhere. So all the things, the terms of conditions will be dictated by the MNC only, that the price, the quality control, the strict quality control they will follow, delivery time, labor conditions, all this will be controlled by MNC. And the small producer they can't have any say in all of these things. Thus, we see that there are variety of ways in which MNCs are spreading their production and interacting with local producers in various countries. So, by setting up partnership with local company, by using the local companies for the supplies, by closely competing with the local companies or buying them up, so MNCs are exerting the strong influence on the production at the faraway places. So as a result, production in these widely dispersed locations is getting interlinked. So by these ways, the MNCs they enter into our markets, and in a way they capture our markets also. Okay, now page 59 students. Now here we have to see the case study of the Ford Motors. So Ford Motors is an American company, and it is one of the world's largest automobile manufacturer, and its production has been spread over 26 countries of the world. And Ford Motors they came in India in 1995, and they spent 1700 crores to set up a large plant near Chennai, and this was done in collaboration with Mahindra and Mahindra, a major Indian manufacturer of jeeps and trucks. So the Ford Motors, they came in India in 1995. Okay, and they it is a big MNC, and they have their production units in the 26 countries. And now they came and they jointly set up the production with Mahindra and Mahindra, the local company. So you can see that the moment the Ford Motors came, and the Mahindra and Mahindra they got 1700 crores as a foreign direct investment. So Ford Motors, with them they will bring the foreign direct investment of 1700 crores plus sophisticated machinery also. So it will be good for the Mahindra and Mahindra. So by the year 2004, the Ford Motors was selling 27,000 cars in the Indian market, while 24,000 cars were being exported from India to South Africa to Mexico and Brazil. The number of cars can vary, student, from different edition to edition. So the company wants to develop Ford India as a component supplying base for its other plants across the globe. So they want to set up here the Ford India as a component supplying base to other parts of the globe also. So in this case study, you can easily see that the MNC comes, they join the hands with the local company, and local company will also get benefit. First the investment will come, additional investment of 1700 crore, and then the MNC will also bring with them sophisticated technology, so it is good for the local company. Now next is foreign trade and integration of the market. So how through foreign trade the markets are being integrated, so let's see. So for the long time, student, foreign trade has been a main channel collecting the country. So foreign trade is a main channel through which we connect the countries. In history, you have read about the Silk routes and other trade routes which connect India and South Asia to East and West, and huge trade, extensive trade that took place along these routes. And you would remember that it was a trading interest, that while the East India Company, it came to India because of trade only. So, what is the basic function of foreign trade if you see? So, in simple words, foreign trade creates an opportunity for the producers to reach beyond the domestic market. That is the market of their own country. So, through foreign trade, the producers, they can expand their business. They can expand their business and they can reach to the international markets, which, so they have captured their domestic market. Now they can expand and they can reach the international market. So producers can sell their products not only in markets located within the country, but they can also compete in the markets which are located in other countries of the world. Similarly, for the buyers also, it will be good because they will have more choice of the goods, and their choice can go beyond what is being domestically produced. So now they will have the goods which is being produced beyond their domestic horizon. So this is also good for the buyers, and this is also good for the producers. Now on page 60, students, of your NCRT book, now we have to see the effect of foreign trade. So on earlier page we have defined the foreign trade, that the foreign trade, it provides an opportunity to the producers to go beyond their domestic market, and it is also good for the buyers, for the consumers, because it will provide them more variety of the goods, so their choice can go beyond now what is being domestically available to them. So the Chinese toys in India, let's see the effect of the foreign trade through the example of the Chinese toys. Now the Chinese toys, when we went for the liberalization reforms 1991, so they started exporting plastic toys to India. Now buyers in India, they have to choose from Indian and Chinese toy. Now Chinese toys, they were cheap and they were having new designs, durable also, but Indian toys, they were expensive and that too of the old designs. So the demand for the Chinese toys, it increased, and within a year 70 to 80% shops were replaced by the Chinese toys. So now what is the result of this? So the result of this, that the Chinese toys maker, it was good for the Chinese producers, the toy makers, and it was also good for the Indian buyers. But if we see, it is a loss to the Indian toy maker, because now their market is being captured by the Chinese toy makers. But it is good for the Indian buyer, because now they have a more of a choice, and that too at the low prices, and that too new designs. So now what is the most important results of all this? That choice of the goods in the market rises. Okay, so the choice, obviously, if more and more goods are coming into your country, so it will be good for the buyers, for the consumer. So choice of the goods in the market rises, and the prices of the similar goods in the two markets, they also tends to become equal, and the producers in two countries, they also tend to compete, though they are separated thousands of miles. Students, now on page 61, so we were discussing earlier the Chinese toys, that what happened when Chinese toys, they came in India, and The buyers in India, they have now more wider choice in form of Chinese toy, that too at the cheap prices. So the demand for Chinese toys, it increased, but it was benefit to the Chinese producers also. It is benefit to the Indian buyers also, but it was not beneficial for the Indian toy maker also. So as a result, what happened? So choice of the goods in the market, it increased. So more choice now for the Indian buyers, and prices of the similar goods in two markets tend to become equal. Suppose if, now how to explain this? Suppose if I am a domestic producer, I am charging high prices of the toys, and Chinese toy producer is charging very less. Then nobody will purchase my products, my toys. So to stay in the competition, I have to reduce my price, and then the prices tend to become equal in the two markets, and the producers also in the two countries now closely compete against each other, even though they are separated by thousands of miles. So the foreign trade thus results in connecting the markets. So we have seen the foreign trade, they have connected the markets, and they have integrated the markets of the different countries also. Now comes, what is globalization? So now comes the topic, what is globalization? So students, in the past 2 to 3 decades, more and more MNCs have been looking for locations around the world where there is cheap labor available, abundant labor available, and all other facilities and opportunities are also favorable. So foreign investment by MNCs in these countries have been increasing. If all the conditions have been fulfilled, MNC, they will increase their investment. At the same time, foreign trade between the countries is also increasing. So foreign trade is also increasing. So as a large part of the foreign trade is controlled by MNCs, like we have seen, the car manufacturing plant of the Ford Motor in India not only produces car for the Indian market, it also exports car to other developing countries, and the exports car component for its many factories also. So MNCs look for the cheap location. Why MNC will come here? They will, if they will have cheap location, if they have cheap labor. So foreign investment will increase. So foreign trade will increase, and this all the foreign trade is controlled by MNC only. So we have seen in the case of Ford Motors why they came to India, because they found the cheap location in India. Then Ford Motors, they produces the cars in India, and for the developing countries also they produce the cars. So now page 62, students, here I was talking about the globalization. So the result of greater investment and greater foreign trade has been the greater integration of production and markets. So more investment means more foreign trade, and more foreign trade means more and more MNCs coming, and more MNCs means more and more globalization. So more investment, more MNCs will come, more foreign trade will be there, and more globalization. So globalization is the process of rapid integration or interconnection between the countries. So MNCs are playing a major role in globalization process. It is MNC only who accelerate the process of globalization. More and more goods and services, investment and technology are being moving now between the countries. If you see, this is because of MNC. And most regions of the world, they are in closer contact with each other. So besides movements of goods, service, investment and technology, there is one more way in which countries are connected, that is through movement of people between the country. And usually people move from one country to another in search of better income, better jobs, better education. And in the past few decades, there has not been much increase in the movement of people between the various countries because of the various restrictions. So various restrictions are there. You can see the COVID restrictions are also there now. So there is restrictions on the movement of the people, but there is no restriction now. The goods and services, they are freely moving. Now we have to see the factors that have enabled globalization. So why all this? We are saying globalization is there, investment is increasing, MNCs are coming, foreign trade is increasing, globalization is happening. So which are the factors that have enabled globalization? So first is technology, and within technology, improvement in the transportation, the means of transportation, and information communication and technology. So that the role of this technology also is very important, which led to the integration of the markets. So first is the rapid improvement in technology. That has been the major factor that has encouraged the globalization process. In the last 50 years, we have seen several improvements in the transportation technology, and this has made the faster delivery of the goods across long distance possible at lower cost. So, fastest delivery we have seen. We have the fastest means of transportation, railways we have, then roadways we have, airways we have. Now the containers for the transport of goods. So goods are placed in containers. So now we are using containers for transporting our goods. So it can be loaded intact into your ships, railways, planes and trucks. So containers have led to huge reduction in port handling cost. Okay, more portable they are and increase the speed also with which exports can reach the market. Similarly, the cost of air transport has reduced. This has enabled much greater volume of goods being transported by airlines. Now, on page 63, students, I was discussing earlier also the factors that have enabled globalization. So, I was talking about technology. Within technology, I have talked about improvement in the transportation technology. Now, let's see that development in even more remarkable have been the developments in information and communication technology. In recent times, students' technologies in the area of telecommunication, computers, internets have been changing rapidly. Telecommunication facilities, telephones, mobiles, fax, they are used to contact one another around the world, to access the information very quickly, to communicate from the remote areas. And this has been facilitated by the satellite communication. So, you are aware now that computers have been now entering almost every field, all the digital content we have. And now internet, you also know, if we want to obtain information, we can obtain easily, we can share information. So emails we have, WhatsApp we have, Facebook, so many things. Then we have Google, okay, the internet explorers we have. So we can now talk to anyone on the voicemail across the world at very negligible cost. Now, how what is the role of this IT in the globalization process, or this information and communication technology has played a major role in spreading out production of services across the countries. Now, how? So let's see through the example of a news magazine which was published for the London readers, is to be designed and printed in Delhi. The text of the magazine is sent through internet to the Delhi office. So a news magazine which has to be published for the London, it will be designed and printed in Delhi. So the because the cheap, it will be cheap for the London magazine publish this agency for London agency to get it published here in Delhi. The text of the magazine is sent through internet to the Delhi office. The designers in the Delhi office, they get the orders on how to design the magazine from, they got all the instructions that how to design the magazine from the London office. And then how it is done using the telecommunication facilities, through email, through internet. The designing is done on computer, and after printing, the magazines are sent to the London through airways. And the payment, how payment is done for designing and printing, it is done by online this banking, okay, net banking. So the payment is also done. So you can see that IT, the role of IT is immense in the globalization process. So now page 64, students. So I was talking about the factors that have enabled globalization. So we have seen the technology, and within technology we have seen the improvement in the transportation means, and then the role of IT, and then now liberalization due to the policies also. So the globalization happened. It became possible because of the liberalization policies, the liberalization of foreign trade and foreign investment policies of the government. So, students, now let us return to the example of imports of Chinese toys in India. Suppose the Indian government put a tax on the import of toys. What will happen? If government will introduce a trade barrier, they will put a tax on the import of the toys. Then what will happen? Then those who wish to import these toys, they have to pay a tax on this. Now, because of the tax, buyer will have to pay a higher price on the imported toys. So Chinese toys will no longer be cheap in the Indian markets, and the imports from China will automatically reduce, and the Indian toy makers will prosper. So this was happening before the liberalization, before the reforms we introduced. So tax on import, student, is an example of trade barrier. It is a barrier, it is a restriction, because some restriction has been set up. Government can use trade barriers to increase or decrease the foreign trade, and to decide what kind of goods and how much of each should come into the country. And the Indian government, after independence, they have put the barriers to the foreign trade and foreign investment. So this was considered necessary also to protect the producers within the country from the foreign competition. Because after independence, when we got independence, our industry was not that much strong that they can survive the foreign competition. So it was essential to protect our industry. So industries were just coming up in 1950s and 60s, and competition from imports at this stage would not have allowed our industries to come up or survive even. Thus, India allowed imports only of essential items like fertilizers, petroleum, and machinery. That's it. Otherwise, we made our economy closed after the independence. So, all the countries they have followed this strategies only, that they have to give protection to their domestic producers through variety of means. So, but starting around 1991, some far-reaching changes we have seen the policies. The government decided the time has come for the Indian producer now to compete with the producers around the globe. Otherwise, the Indian producers will keep on sitting and they will take the things for granted. It felt that competition would improve improvement of the performance of the producer within the country, since now they would have to improve their quality. And this decision was supported by powerful international organizations like WTO. Under their pressure only, the government of India, they took these decisions, they brought these reforms, they brought new economic policies in 1991. Thus, the barrier on foreign trade and foreign investment were removed to the large extent. So it means now goods could be imported, exported easily. Foreign companies could set up their factories and offices here. Means we opened up our economies. We went for liberalization. We adopted liberal attitude. So removing barriers or restrictions set up by the government is what is known as liberalization. So with liberalization of trade, businesses are allowed to make their own decisions, take their own decision about what they wish to import or export. The government imposes very less restriction, and government now interfere very less now than before. So it is said that government is more liberal now. So this is liberalization. So this is another factor that have enabled globalization because of the government policies. Government remove all the restrictions on foreign trade, on foreign investment. So we opened up our economies. So students, now on page 65 we have to discuss the World Trade Organization. So we have seen that liberalization of foreign trade and investment in India was supported by some of the very powerful international organizations. And these organizations like World Trade Organization, they say that all barriers to foreign trade and investment are harmful. There should not be no barrier, and trade between the countries should be free. All the countries in the world should liberalize their policies. They should lose all the restrictions. So WTO is one such organization whose aim is to liberalize international trade. And it was started at the initiative of developed countries only. And WTO established rules regarding international trade and sees that these rules are obeyed. And now nearly 164 countries of the world are the members of the WTO. So though WTO is supposed to allow free trade for all, in practice it is seen that developed countries have unfairly retained trade barriers. So to us, the WTO is saying that you have to liberalize your economies, you have to go for the free trade, you have to open up your economies. But on the other hand, the developed countries, they have retained the trade barriers. The WTO rules have forced the developing countries to remove the trade barriers, but the developed countries, they have retained their trade barriers. And the debate is there now, the current debate is there on the trade in the agriculture products. So let's see this debate. So the developed countries helping their own producers through subsidies, but they are asking the developing countries to remove all the barriers. So there is a debate on the trade practices. You have seen in the sectors chapter also that the agriculture, the main base, the primary sector of our economy, it provides the significant employment to the large proportion of people. Means more than 50% of our Indian population is engaged in agriculture, and the contribution of agriculture to the GDP is 14 to 15%. So this we have seen. If we compare this condition of the condition of primary sector with that of the position of our primary sector with that of the USA, then the share of agriculture in GDP is 1%, and the total employment is very tiny, 0.5%. So only 0.5% of people are engaged in agriculture in USA, and the GDP contribution is just 1%. And see our case, more than 50% of people are engaged in agriculture. And yet this very small percentage of USA who are engaged in agriculture receives heavy subsidy from the US government for production and export to other countries. So huge subsidy is being given by the US government to these farmers because they are just 1%. So due to this massive money that US farmers receive, they can sell their farm products at very low prices. Like, suppose if US farmer produces their product at rupees 100, so he should sell at rupees 110 or 120. But now US government is giving them huge subsidy of rupees 50, suppose, then US farmers can easily sell their product at 60 or 70. But Indian farmer can't sell his product at 60 when his cost of production is 100. So I hope with this example you understand that how US farmer can sell their farm product at very low prices in our markets. So the surplus farm products are sold in other country markets at very low prices, and this affects the farmer of these countries, of the developing countries. So the developing countries are therefore asking the developed country government that we have reduced our trade barrier according to WTO rules. But you have ignored the rules of WTO, and you have continued to pay your farmers the huge sums of money. And you have asked our government to stop supporting our farmers, but you are doing so yourself. So is this a free or fair trade? So this is a debate which is going on in the trade practices and WTO, since they are being set up by the developed countries, so they will help the developed countries only. So now page 66, students, now we have to discuss impact of globalization in India. So we have to see what positive and negative advantages globalization have on different sections of the society, Indian society. So in the last 20 years, globalization of Indian economy has come a long way. Now let's see what is its impact. Now globalization and greater competition among producers, both local and foreign producers, has been advantageous to consumers, particularly the well-off section in the urban area. Why? Because of the greater choice before this consumer, who now enjoy the improved quality and lower prices of several products. So globalization, and due to more and more globalization, there is increased competition among the producer, both producers, the international producers and the domestic producers. So this competition has led to the advantages to the consumer. It has provided advantages. It has provided the wide variety of goods to the consumers, and that too at the cheap prices, and that too improved quality of the products. So as a result, the people are enjoying higher standard of living that was possible earlier. So the first advantage is the availability of variety of products, which enable the consumers to have greater choice and enjoy improved quality and lower prices for several products. And this has led to higher standard of living also. Now, among producers and workers, the impact of globalization has not been uniform. So, this impact is not uniform on the workers and producers. So, let's see. Firstly, MNC have increased their investment in India. So, the another positive impact, this led to globalization, led to increase in FDI, that is foreign direct investment. So, more and more MNCs are coming, they are bringing with them more and more investment. So MNCs, they have been interested in industries such as cell phones, automobile, electronics, soft drink, fast food, services such as banking. So in these areas, the MNCs are coming in the developing countries, in our country also, and they are capturing the markets. And these products have a large number of well-off buyers. If you see these products, the greater demand is there, and more demand, so more buyers are there. So in these industries and services, new jobs have been created. So when more demand is there, more investment will be there, more the industries will be set up more, and it will create more job opportunities. And local companies also, those who are supplying the raw material, they will also be prospered because of this. So the another positive advantage of globalization in India is increase in FDI. Then creation of new jobs in certain industries. So we have seen the demand is of the cell phone, automobile, electronics, soft drinks. So these kind of industries coming up, and so the employment opportunity is also high in these industries. Now, on page 67, we were discussing earlier the impact of globalization. We have seen the positive impact that there is a to the consumer. Globalization has provided variety of products, greater choice, improved quality, lower prices. This has led to higher standard of living. Then there is increase in FDI. We have seen more and more MNCs are coming. They are bringing with them FDI. Creation of new jobs in certain industries. This also we have seen. Now, after this, several top Indian companies, they have been able to benefit from the increased competition. So, certain top Indian companies, they have also taken advantage of this increased competition. They invested in new technology. So, they improved their production method. They raised their production standards, and some have done collaboration also, partnership also with the foreign companies. And moreover, globalization has enabled some large Indian company to emerge as MNCs themselves also, like Tata Motors, Infosys, Asian Paints, Sundaram Fasteners. So these Indian companies, they have converted themselves into the MNCs. So the top Indian companies, they have been benefited by investing in new technology, production methods, and they have done successful collaboration. And globalization has enabled some large Indian company to emerge as MNCs themselves, like Tata Motors, Infosys, and Rinbexis. Now, this globalization has led to creation of new opportunities for companies which are providing services, particularly those involving IT. So, service providing industry like data entry, accounting, call centers. So, all this the demand is increasing. So the globalization has created the new opportunities for the companies who are providing these services which involve IT. Now, one more thing which we have to see is steps to attract foreign investment. What the government can do? So, the government can create special economic zones. So, special economic zone are specially created industrial zones having world class facilities such as roads, electricity, water, transport, storage. So, these zones are basically created to attract the foreign investment. So, the government of the developing countries, they can create such kind of industrial zones which is known as special economic zones. And now the question arises, why companies, the MNCs, they will invest, they will come and set up their offices in special economic zones? Because the government is providing them world class facilities. All the facilities of electricity will be there, well laid down roads, water transport, storage facility, water and transport, so everything will be available. Then exemption in the payment of taxes for the initial period of 5 years. So this relaxation also the government can give to the MNCs, that tax holiday they can provide. Then the government can also do flexibility. They can compromise in implementing labor laws also. And MNCs, they demand flexibility in the labor laws in order to reduce their cost of production. So this can be done. And so this is special economic zones, which are the industrial zones which can be created by the government in order to attract the MNCs. So now on page 68, students, now we were discussing the impact of the globalization, and we have seen discussed the positive impact of globalization. We have seen on the consumers and on the big producers. We have seen the big Indian companies, they have gained, and the consumers, they have gained. Now we have to discuss the negative impact of globalization. So the globalization had its negative impact on the small producers because they were not able to compete with MNCs. It was very difficult for them to compete, and they perished. Okay, so they just perished, they die, they were not able to survive. Die means they were not able to survive the competition. So, for a large number of small producers and workers, so these two sections, the small producers and workers, globalization has posed major challenges. Now, due to the rising competition, the competition was hard, and the small producers, they were not able to compete, and which led to the shutting down of their small industry or the local industry. So on your in your book on page 68 it is given rising competition. So it's a case study is given of a Ravi did not expect that he would have to face crisis in such a short period of life as the industrialist. So he started a venture. He started a company which was producing capacitors in Tamil Nadu. So capacitors are used in many of the electronic home appliances like TV, like tube lights. So this components is used in the electric appliances. So within 3 years he was able to expand his production, and 20 workers were working under him. So this is the scenario when he started his company. Now his struggle to run his company started when government removed restrictions on import of capacitors as per as agreement at WTO in 2001. So under the pressure of WTO, the government removed the restrictions and government started importing the capacitor. Now his main client, the television company, they used to buy different components including capacitors in bulk for the manufacturing of TV sets, but the competition from MNC's brand forced these Indian television companies to move into assembling activities. So now these companies they started under the competition. So due to the merger with the MNCs or the orders which are being placed by the MNC with these companies, local companies, so these companies started assembling the activities for MNCs. Now even when some of them bought the capacitors, they prefer to import it as the price of the imported items was half than the price which is charged by the Ravi. So now Ravi produces very less quantity of capacitors he was producing earlier, and now only seven persons are working under him. So many of the Ravi friends in the same business in Hyderabad and Chennai, they have closed their units because whatever imports were coming into our country, that was more cheap. So no demand was left with this kind of small producers. So if demand is not there, then how they will produce, for what they will produce? So these batteries, capacitors, plastics, toys, tires, dairy products, vegetable oils are some examples of the industries where the small manufacturers have been hit hard due to the competition. So all these are the products in which the small producers they were affected due to the competition. They were not able to survive, and several units have been shut down, rendering many workers jobless. So they lost their job also. If production is not going on, then how they will be provided with the job? So the small industries in India employ a largest number of workers and in the country, next only to agriculture. So this happened due to the rising competition. So this was the negative impact of the globalization on our small producers. Now, student, let's see the negative impact of globalization on the workers. So, there was due to the competition, there was uncertain in employment also. So, globalization and the pressure of competition have, to the great extent, changed the lives of the workers. Faced with the growing competition, most employers these days prefer to employ workers flexibly. Flexibly means whenever the need is there, they will employ. This means that worker jobs are no longer secure. So if need is there, if season is there, they will employ the workers and workers will do the extra shifts, and otherwise they will remove the workers. So the large MNCs in the garment industry in Europe and America order their products from the Indian exporters. So here small producers are there. So these large MNCs are in the garment industry, they place their order here. Now these large MNCs with the worldwide network look for the cheapest goods in order to maximize their profits. And to get this large order, Indian garment exporters also try to cut down their own cost, because one of the conditions of the MNCs is to uh, cheap supply of the goods. They want the Indian garment exporter to provide them the goods in bulk at the cheap rates. Now these exporters, what they do, as the cost of raw material cannot be reduced, so the exporters try to cut the labor cost. So they can't compromise with the quality of the raw material. So where they compromise? With the labor, because there is no worth of the Indian labor. One will go, 10 will come. Because the demand of labor is more than the supply of labor is more than the demand for labor. So, where earlier a factory used to employ workers on a permanent basis, now they employ workers on a temporary basis, so that they have not to pay workers for the whole year. So, this is exploitation of the worker. Worker also have to put in very long working hours. So, double shift they have to work. on a regular basis during the peak season, and wages are also low, and workers are forced to work overtime to make the both end meets. So if wages are low, then they have to work overtime, extra time. So while this competition among the garment exporters has allowed the MNCs to make large profit, workers are denied their share of the benefits brought about by globalization. So, due to globalization, who is in the beneficial position here? The MNCs, because they are putting pressure on the exporters, garment exporters, to reduce the cost. And in order to reduce the cost, these exporters, they compromise with the workers. Now, the case study is given of a Shushila on page 69 only. So here, 35-year-old Sushila, she has spent many years as a worker in garment export industry in Delhi. She was employed as a permanent worker. So she was employed permanent worker. So permanent worker, and she was having all the benefits of health insurance, provident fund, overtime at the double rate. When Shushila factory closed in the late 1990s, so after globalization, after this economic policy came, so after searching for a job for 6 months, she finally got a job 30 kilometers away from where she is living. And even after working in this factory for several years, she is just a temporary worker and earns less than half of the what she was earning earlier. So this is the condition now after we went for the new economic reforms. Sushila leaves her house every morning 7 days a week at 7:30 and returns at 10. And day off from work means no wages. And she has none of the benefits which she was getting earlier. So factories closer to her home had widely fluctuating, means sometimes the orders are more, sometimes less, and therefore they pay even less. So this is the condition of the garment workers who were enjoying all the benefits earlier, and they were getting good wages also. And see the scenario after the new economic policy was introduced, it was very difficult for this kind of workers to survive. So MNCs, they try to cut down their cost. They look for the cheapest suppliers. So the suppliers will also exploit the workers in order to provide complete order to MNC at the low cost. So they provide the low wages to the workers, and that too at long working hours. So now page 70 of your NCRT book, students. So earlier on page 69, we were discussing the negative impact of globalization on the workers and the condition of work, and the hardship of the workers described uh, earlier have become common to many industrial units. So this kind of difficulties they face, this kind of unemployment, exploitation they face, and most workers today are employed in unorganized sector. So more increasingly, condition of the work in the organized sector have come to resemble the unorganized sector. So means there is a less difference between now left between the organized and unorganized sector. Earlier all the benefits were given in the organized sector, but now the organized sector is also becoming the unorganized sector. So workers in the organized sector such as Shushila no longer get protection and benefits that they enjoyed earlier. So while they are working in organized sector, still the Shushila no longer gets any protection, any benefits which they were enjoying earlier. Now the struggle for the fair globalization. The next topic is that now struggle for the equality, so that all should enjoy the benefits of globalization. So the above evidence indicate that not everyone has benefited from globalization. So we have seen only people with education, skill, wealth, they have made the best use of new opportunities. On the other hand, there are many people who have not shared the benefits. So since globalization is now a reality, the question is how to make globalization more fair. So fair globalization would create opportunities for all. Then only we will say globalization fair, then when opportunities are created for all, and also ensure the benefits of globalization are shared better. So this is the responsibility of the government. The government can play a major role in making this possible. Its policies must protect the interest not only of the rich and the powerful, but all the people in the country. So you have seen that who received more benefits from the globalization: big companies, big industries, big producers, and consumers. And on the other hand, you have seen the negative impact of globalization on the small producers and the workers. So now government should take some steps. Okay, government should take some possible steps. For instance, government can ensure that labor laws are properly implemented and workers get their right. So it is a duty of the government to see that their labor laws are properly implemented, and it can support the small producers to improve their performance till the time they become strong enough to compete. So some support can be given to the small producers so that they can perform better, they can improve their performance so that they can become strong to compete. Till the time, government can provide them support. If necessary, government can use trade and investment barriers also. So this can also be regulated by the government. If government in certain areas, in certain sector, government can do this, they can regulate. So it can negotiate with the WTO for fairer rules also. It can also align with other developing countries with similar interest to fight against the domination of developed countries in WTO. So these are some of the steps which government can take. They can implement the strict labor laws. They can help the small producers. They can regulate some of the trade and the investment barriers they can keep. So in the past few years, massive campaigns and representation by people's organization have influenced important decisions relating to trade and investment at WTO. So, this has demonstrated that people can also play an important role in the struggle for fair globalization. So, the pressure can be put by the people also on the government. Okay. Now, students, summing up the chapter here. So now the fight is against the neoliberalism. The campaigns are being launched against the neoliberalism, that is a political approach that favors free market, capitalism, deregulation, and reduction in government spending. So in this chapter, we looked at the present phase of globalization. Globalization is a process of rapid integration of countries. And this is happening through more and more foreign trade and more foreign investment. So more foreign trade, more foreign investment, more MNCs are coming, so more globalization is happening. MNCs are playing a major role in globalization process. More and more MNCs are looking for locations around the world which can provide them cheap and skilled labor. As a result, production is being organized in a complex way. We have seen that how the production process is being carried out by the MNCs. Designing is done somewhere else, then manufacturing somewhere else, then assembling somewhere else, then the globally the product is uh, sold, and the customer care after sales services somewhere else. So technology, the factors that enable this globalization is technology, particularly the IT. It has played a big role in organizing production across the countries. In addition, the another factor which enable globalization is the government policy, the liberalization of trade and the investment. That has also facilitated globalization by removing the barriers to the trade. So at the international level, the WTO, that is also putting a pressure on developing countries to liberalize the trade and investment. So then we have seen the impact of the globalization, that the positive impact of the globalization is on the consumers and on the big producers, big industries, big companies, and those who were educated, who were having wealth. And the negative impact we have seen on the small producers and the workers. They have suffered as a result of the rising competition. This we have seen, they have not able to survive the competition. And fair globalization would create opportunities for all. So we have to go for the for fair globalization, and also ensure that the benefit of globalization are shared better, and in this direction government intervention is required.